Sup, Nerdmigos, and the Jive Talking Nerd, John Norgrove. We've got Wife here, and we're here for another review Jive. It's a 2021 review Jive, so it's the exact same thing as last time.
But without beer. With a
new graphic, and I'm still drinking. Because I'm not a quitter. Just keep drinking, right? Anywho, so today's movie for review is 2020's Christmas extravaganza, Wonder Woman 1984, because it came out on Christmas.
Yeah.
So, I think that when we talk about sequels, we need to mention whether or not we liked the original. So, did you like the original Wonder Woman?
I was not a fan. It was very blah.
Yeah.
It was very, like, I could fall asleep or just be on my phone the whole time I was watching it, and it wouldn't matter. I wouldn't even register that the whole movie happened.
Yeah. So, as a general rule, I'm not a huge fan, as a general idea, I should say, I'm not a huge fan of the original Wonder Woman, the first Wonder Woman. Is it better than most of the other DC movies? Certainly. But I think that we are only comparing it to other DC movies, and I think that in comparison to all of the modern superhero movies, it honestly comes up pretty fucking short. I don't think it's nearly as good. And so I wasn't a huge fan of that one, and going into this, and obviously, like, when did this come out on? Fucking HBO?
Yeah.
Yeah,
HBO
okay, this came out on HBO Max. And we have HBO Max. So we, like Christmas Day, we're like, alright, we're gonna watch this. So we watch this, Christmas Day, middle of the day on Christmas, we watch this movie. And it just... I don't know, man. It's sort of entertaining. It's, in my personal opinion, better than the first one.
Yeah.
But
it's by no means a great movie.
No, it's not a great movie. Yeah. It's a good movie. It's all right, man. I mean, like, the bad guy's played by who's the bad guy?
Oh my God,
Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, Pedro Pascal.
The bad guy's played by Pedro Pascal, and he does a fucking amazing job.
Yeah,
this movie is worth it just for Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
He's the only reason why anybody should be watching this fucking movie.
He's also really the only reason this movie is good.
Yeah, he plays a pretty absurd comic book style villain.
Yeah.
And everybody's gonna bring up, and if you've seen any reviews or any discussions of Wonder Woman, everybody brings up the exact same thing, which is the whole, like, what if one person wished for 1,000,000 wishes, or what if one person wished for world peace, or what if one person wished for... And the thing is that that's really only, like, the glaring top of the iceberg of fucking logical inefficiencies and inequalities in this whole bloody movie, man. I mean, the opening sequence for this movie is her being a little kid, like, and some shit happens, and she decides to cheat, and she throws a tantrum about, like, not winning the thing or whatever.
Yeah.
But we sort of, like, never see her, like, apply that she no longer cheats.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that what they're trying to do with this is that, like, see, she's okay with cutting corners, and in this movie, we had to, 100% spoilers, by the by, she had to, like, give up her love to, to save the world, so you see how she's, like, not cutting corners anymore. But,
well,
it's not like she had to come to a moral conclusion to give up her love or not. She literally had to... she had to say, fuck you to this guy in order to prevent the nuclear goddamn apocalypse.
Well, and...
Right? She didn't get a choice. She didn't mature.
Like, after he died, she later basically summons him back, but he's not in his body. He just doesn't appear... he's in another guy's body.
Wasn't even addressing that. That makes it worse, by the way.
Really,
I was just talking about the overarching idea, not the, like, definitely body snatching, like...
Well, to me, this whole movie is like about morals. So, like, when you were a kid and you watched, like, cartoons, especially Saturday morning cartoons, they would have, like, the moral of the story for whatever the show was at the end.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's sometimes it's more overt in the end, like, hey kids, don't get into strangers' vans.
Yeah,
and sometimes it's like pretty weaved into the story where you're like, oh, being a bully is bad. But like this was a story that was meant to tell us about how you shouldn't make questionable moral decisions, yet our main character decides to just like...
I don't know that it was trying to say you shouldn't make questionable moral decisions. I mean, honestly, it feels like they were like, we need to have this, like, you know, there's this morality play in it, and they were, I feel like they were definitely going for that, like, 80s Saturday morning cartoon sort of a vibe, right? And I got that, right? But I don't even know that they were necessarily saying don't make questionable moral decisions, again, because at no point in time was somebody given two paths and they went down a path, right, to solve a problem. Like, they didn't make the, like, I mean, you could argue that she chose, well, see, this is the thing. She didn't know she was making a wish when she made the wish.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's true.
So, theoretically, she's indefensible, although I feel like she should have immediately recognized that what she was doing is, like, morally repugnant and backed way the fuck off that.
Yeah.
But it's totally cool that we can just ignore the fact that this, like, strange man that she thought it was appropriate to hit on at the end, which that scene was fucking weird, was just, like, mind wiped and then physically taken advantage of. You know, I mean, and like, let's assume that, whatever, he dropped dead the moment that fucking what's-his-name took over his body, so there's like, let's make up a story so that way that's not morally reprehensible, because I think that the writers didn't think about it or care. I don't think any of the actors thought about it or care. I don't think the story thinks about it or cares. And since they don't want to care about, like, the main morality play of this movie, which is inappropriate, I think that maybe we should ignore it also and just be like, fuck this movie, move on, right? But when it comes down to, like everybody's sort of like a selfish piece of shit, and then when it comes down to brass tacks and people are having to, like, make decisions to save the world or whatever the heck, right? It's not, well, you know, if we decide this way, then these people get power, and if we decide this way, then these people get power. It's sort of like, we can either stick with the shitty decision we made and literal nuclear winter, or not. That's it. That's your only moral choice in this movie. And I feel like the ending suffered from, like, wrap-up syndrome like a motherfucker. First of all, the whole her fighting the cat lady in the water part was dumb. The fight scene itself was really good. The water part was just dumb, and the cat part also was super weird. So fat. Well, the idea is that like, at first she wanted to be like Gal Gadot, and then she got that, but then she was like, I want to be
an apex predator.
I want to be an apex predator, you know, I want to be you know, I don't want to be like someone else, I want to be just me, or whatever the fuck, and then we're gonna assume that the bad guy in his, like, when you make a wish, he gets to make a wish. Yeah. Also, I guess, again. I think that he was just like, make her an apex predator, or she's an apex predator, or whatever the fuck, and it just, The Rock partially turned her into a fucking cheetah.
I mean, I guess it's good that she didn't get turned into like
just a whole ass
like a
cheetah?
Shark or something.
Yeah, I guess she's that.
Literally on land, except for that.
We're gonna assume that, you know, maybe they had like a longer in-depth conversation and she loves cheetahs or something. Like, whatever. We can kind of ignore all of those parts. You know what? The CGI was all right, I guess. I don't know. All the fight scenes in this show, in fact, franchise, in both of these movies, don't really have a lot of weight. I think that they overuse slow motion, but not in, like, a fun, action-packed way, where, like, a movie that uses slow motion, but in a better manner, would be the, what's the, like, gentleman, like, English,
Are you talking about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
No. And it's the like newer one. A second one came out. It's got what's her name in it, and she's in like Argentina or whatever the fuck. But
Oh,
I can only think
the heist one?
No. The second movie is she's like tattooing people with gold rings. Kingsman, thank you. Yeah. I can only think of details about the second movie, and I'm just like, I'm trying to think about the first movie. Although Kingsman 2 does a good job also.
To an adventure.
But Kingsman does a great job of having slow motion and having full pace motion. Or honestly, I mean, like any of the sort of like more modern heisty movies kind of vaguely do this also. Not the Ocean's franchise, but like the other ones that don't have more than one movie. But like you want to intersperse your slow motion and not, but when you do it, you want it to feel like there's weight and.
Or like there's a reason why you're in slow-mo.
The fight scene in the mall and the fight scene in the White House in this movie both felt very video gamey in the way that, you know how when you're walking in a video game, sometimes, especially when you're walking through like rough terrain in a video game, it feels more like you're floating than you're actually putting feet down on ground. Right? And this movie these fight scenes feel floaty, right? Like Wonder Woman can just spontaneously change the force, direction, and velocity of anything that's happening around her, assuming it helps or does not help the plot. It's just utter fucking chaos. And this movie doesn't even address, but like presents the like she can vaguely fly, maybe or maybe not. I don't know what the fuck any of that is about. Like there's so many things in this movie where like I don't know if it's that they bit off more than they could chew, or if they just like didn't 100% the thought. And they're like, what if she had a fight scene in the White House and she's like kicking stuff around and stuff, and somebody was just like, put everybody on wires, we'll make it happen, right? I think they're trying to make her feel powerful but not addressing the fact that power has to come from somewhere. Like when she's punching somebody, that force has to come from somewhere, right? And it's a combination of like everything sort of oversold, right? But like under-delivered upon. It's vaguely like watching, and this is like a hyper-specific reference, but it's like vaguely like watching the like sort of beginner's match for wrestling when you go to like a local arena and they're like, we've got our second years in wrestling school out, like sign up for wrestling school if you're into it or what have you, and you're like, oh yeah, I like these guys, and they all just, this is like Jeff gold pants because he's got gold pants, and like, you know, they don't even have characters or anything yet, and they're on the mat and they're like they're selling everything so hard and they're stomping so hard on the mat, but they're stomping their fists like back here, right? Nobody in the audience is like, perspective, so they're getting hit so hard, you're just like, you're working on it, you gotta get a little closer, but like you're working on it, good for you. It's like the movie, the fight scenes, the fighting in this movie feels like vaguely rough drafty. Yeah. You know? And being supported by like a interesting but like sort of lackluster plot, because I would have loved a lot more into like her working at the museum and the research stuff, and that shit was like 2 nights in, fuck it. You could just walk into the Smithsonian and jack shit. Like, who fucking cares?
Nobody,
dude,
like,
there's no
pays
security.
attention.
Nobody gives a fuck. It's 1984. There's just fucking drugs. Whatever. Yeah. You know? And this movie really feels like they're just like, look at all these 80s references and fucking whatever. Look at this flying plane. She can make it invisible. Fucking whatever. Oh, they're in the White House and the president's gonna get, fucking whatever. Like, insofar as the fucking bad guy somehow makes it back to Washington, D.C. from a place he had to fly the fuck into. Like, did he release control of all of this shit? And they're just like, excuse me, sir, you need to go home? And he's just like, yeah, that would be dope. And they're like, no problem, it doesn't matter. We'll take all that, like, fucked up in charge of the country shit that you did, fuck it. Yeah. It's cool. And then they just helicoptered it into, like, a fucking messed up looking field of shit. Like,
well, the whole ending for me was real rough because it leaves a lot of unanswered questions questions, and really large questions. Like, we're talking Batman v Superman level of questions, where you're like, you just, like, totally leveled Gotham, you know? But, like, with this, like, they basically leveled, like, the whole world. So I feel like, for me, it would have been better if the ending was one of those, like, premonition things, like, it all gets sucked into his eye, like, Final Destination, or
if it had just sent him backwards to the point in time where he had made the decision or something.
There's a lot of questions now that don't really have any sort of easy answers.
Yeah. Like,
you know?
why would... Okay, so, like, I get that, like, Russia launched its nukes at us because we magically appeared a bunch of nukes there or some bullshit, right? Like, I get all that. But like... Let's assume that in him undoing all of the wishes, right, at the same time, he, like, canceled the nukes that were in the sky that were non-wish based, but just like a jackass pressing a button nukes. Let's assume that he canceled all that shit out, right? I feel like we would still get a phone call from Russia and just be like, hey, listen, man, I know some weird shit has been happening, but
we need to talk.
What the fuck, dog?
Yeah.
Right? And, like, that's the thing is that because they ended the movie with, like, fucking whatever, everything's just... some shit, right? And this the worst part is that if they had taken some tiny fucking bullshit Cold War skirmish from the 80s, right? Because they didn't need to choose the year 1984. That year didn't mean anything in this movie. Or if it did, tell me below, because I have no fucking clue. But like, if they had chosen, like, oh, there was a little bitch skirmish in, like, 84 or 85 or 83 or whatever the fuck, that, like, didn't mean anything, but it was between, like, America and Russia, but, like, proxy war, or what the fuck ever, or, you know, you hear about this, and I'm not a fucking Cold War expert, but, like, you hear about these, like, oh, there's the 2-day war and the such and such, or the 3-day war over here, or fucking whatever, right? So if they had, like, taken one of those, alright, and then talked about that having been tensions, right, and then, like, made it so that way when he unwished everything, it, like, erased everything but this one thing that was set off non-wish based or whatever, then it feels like it's that, like, maybe this happened in our universe thing.
Yeah.
Or, like, maybe
this
did alter history, even though it sent him all the way back. Like, if it had sent him all the way back to when he was standing there with The Rock, and, like, he remembered, and Wonder Woman was, like, in her apartment, and she remembered, and, like, Chitara was in her lab, and, or whatever the fuck this bitch's name is. And, I'm sorry, I don't remember. And, like, also, she's a great actress, and she did a fucking bang-up job in this.
She absolutely did.
But, like, she remembers, right, and then, like, on the news, they talk about some thing that's going on in some place or whatever, but, like, it just... shit was just happening. Like, the whole part in the Middle East with the, like, wall coming up and then being destroyed, it felt like they just wanted to do some car flips in a sandy place.
And they were like, what if we built a wall?
Yeah,
I mean, even if
there was
they
a lot of
made the bad guys, like, scope smaller than him, like, you know, take over the world, then that would work. But really, it's not like this version of reality has, like, a purge, you know, where you have, like, a set day where everything's just crazy. You know, when you're not on that day, everything's fine and you don't, like, talk about what happened during Wish Purge time. But that's not really the case here. And if it is, then that has much wider implications for the entire DCU. But it was really disappointing what they did.
Yeah.
What was
it felt like none of this movie had existed within the framework of any of the other movies we watched, because, like, there wasn't even, like, the obvious throwaway bullshit that you see at the end of every superhero movie where, like, some superheroes do some shit and then, like, some asshat in a suit is just like, we gotta do whatever, or, like, we gotta make a team, or, like, we gotta build more nukes, or something, you know, fucking anything. But it seems like the world just, like, accepted near destruction and then was just like,
yeah,
we're good.
Yeah.
Which is awful.
So, I know we talked about a lot of the negative things, but what is your best bit?
The best bit for this movie is probably all of the 80s stuff. I loved all of the absurd, just like probably not even the right year of the 80s based on some of the other reviews that we've watched of this movie.
Right year, definitely not the right year.
I loved all of they're just like, this movie's set in the 80s because my best guess is other movies that are vaguely and franchises that are vaguely retro are successful, and they're just like, that's a good enough reason to do a whole thing, you know, like writing.
Yeah,
that's
they were
how
like
you write,
Stranger
I guess.
Things did it.
But yeah, fucking. Ugh. But not about Stranger Things, but just like that manner of writing a movie is evil, corporate bullshit. But no, I loved all the 80s stuff, and obviously it was in the trailer, which makes it worse. But legitimately, my favorite part is when they're walking through that modern art shit, and he just does not understand what is and is not modern art in that little like atrium or whatever the fuck that was.
Yeah.
It is so funny. Holy shit. What about you, best bit?
You Stole Mine with Steve looking at the trash can going.
It was in the trailer too, which is like rough, dude. I was like,
so
that's
funny.
a funny bit, and then when you see the whole thing, you're like, that's really funny.
Aside from that, I feel like seeing the
Balloon
evolution of Pedro Pascal's character turn evil, but like on the precipice of evil was probably my favorite part. Like when he's like opening up his business and he's so excited, even though it's clearly
he plays like a sketchy
office,
little fuck too.
It was like a little heartbreaking. It was like watching that Jack Black movie where he's doing that story about the guy who conned all those people on the East Coast.
Oh yeah,
and I just like the Polka King, I think.
Polka King, yeah, Polka King.
Where you just
watch
like,
Polka King, better fucking movie.
So many like feelings about it. You know, like you know they
Pedro
did something
Pascal
wrong,
to succeed
but
in this
you
movie?
want him to succeed.
Yeah, he's just trying. And in the beginning, it seems like he really is trying. And I mean, he's being like a manipulative, cheating fuck. But like, it seems like he's trying for his kid. And then like, whatever, the stone takes something from him. My guess is like love. Or whatever.
Conscience.
His humanity. Although that's what's taken away from like 50% of people so far.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I don't know. Everything about this movie was sort of like lowest common denominator writing by committee to make the most profitable movie you can. That being said, this isn't a horrible movie. I would still recommend you watch this over Batman vs. Superman, full fucking stop, or Justice League. Doesn't matter. That movie's not good. So, yeah, there's that. It was a fun Christmas movie for us to watch, and then we watched a bunch of way better Christmas movies afterwards, so who fucking cares?
Yeah.
Yeah, either way, I have been John Norgrove. This has been Wife. This has been Review Jive. Don't forget to like this video, comment below, share, subscribe, do all this kind of stuff. Review Jive will theoretically not be this long in the future, but I don't
We
know.
had some feelings.
We had some stuff.
And we had to share.
We watched this movie a while ago, and I promise you it would have been longer had we done it beforehand. So, again, watch Wonder Woman 1984, and then watch Polka King. It's a better movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.